Roger.
And hi, I'm Danny, and we're here with Bradford Chinese School. We've got Jian Lee and John. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Okay, very well. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Chinese school in Bradford? When did you guys get started?
I think Bradford Chinese School actually original to created by a group of parents in 2011, and then actually we also obtained the support from the Bradford Chinese Church and the Bradford Council at that moment. So currently actually our school is located at the Titus Salt School. So and actually we are the weekend school. So actually so this is the basic our information, and then actually I think in the first two or 3 years I think it's very hard for a new school to create. Okay, and as the student number is increase and more people wanted to join our school. So I think in the first 2 or 3 years, our school is keep moving, and we needed, because we needed to rent a larger classroom. So that means actually, at that time I found it's very hard to run a school.
Mm.
And then actually about 2 or 3 years later, we moved to the Bradford Grammar School. So actually at that time I think we found like that we have that school, and then actually we get some support for school as well. And also Bradford Grammar School is very popular, so that actually is good for us to promote our school. So at that time our school number is increased sharply. And then actually our school in 2014 we become a chart members. Okay, so that actually. And then actually, when you create a school, we because we concentrated we want to build a standard school. So actually, when we create school, we create a board, a chart board, and we make discuss what we're going to do. So and then actually we create all the policy and constitution, something like that. So that actually all the document we like a normal school. So we created all the policies, something. So actually, so in 2011, actually we are very easily to get a bronze certificate from the National Resources Center for Supplementary School, Supplementary Education. I think actually we at that time actually we just the credit school at 6 year, as you can imagine, it is quite hard, it's challenging. And then actually at that time actually the National Resource Center, they have some improvement. They have changed into the normally they have the bronze and silver and the golden certificate, and then they change the standard to they use quality mark to like a normal school. So that means we also make application for that in the new quality mark. So that actually, I remember the staff from the resource center say actually our school is only create 6 years, something like that. We can get that mark. So it said actually it's very unusual. So said because we begin we do like that. I remember actually because of our achievement, I have been invited to go to the I think go to London. I could go to the Parliament to visit, something like that. Okay.
Wow.
So I think it's very proud for our school, And actually, the John actually you can say which is he's our the board member. And John also work with other for many years now actually. Okay, so actually this is our basic simple history, and then actually I can show a little bit about some the our number. You can find how our school is developed. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Look at it, in the first 2 year, our student number is just 24 to 30, struck like that, And then actually, because that's 2 year, our school is keep moving. Actually, some parent, he didn't trust us at that moment, So once we moved to, Bradford Grammar School, you look at our number is keep increase, and then actually sharply, and then actually our number, go more than 100 at the top. But this year, you can find it like that. Our number is dropped very sharply.
I guess that's
COVID,
because of COVID.
pandemic, I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah, because we use the online teaching. So some parent, okay, he said they don't like online teaching, because for online teaching is still for students, for children, I think it's very difficult for them to learning. So that's why our student number is keep dropping very quickly, But actually, hopefully, maybe next year we will get better. Most of students will be back to our school.
Yeah, you
Are you
think
still
most of them will come back after the pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually, this is actually our student number. You can find it, how progress of our school,
over on this?
And then actually you can say our student is come from, not only Bradford, and also from the local area, You can find
wow, yeah.
our student come from, the Halifax and Huddersfield, and some Leeds and something like that, and Skepton, something that's also like that. So
That's quite a distance for the kids to be traveling.
Yes, we just use to know that where is our student with some just for help us how to to manage it, how to to advertise something like that. So this actually look at our school is not just the Bradford, and our students also come from different area, and actually our student mostly actually is for Chinese background students. So some family that's a background. And we used to have some class for dual class for some students. Maybe they don't have any background on Chinese, but we still trying to teach them to learn Chinese. So that actually our aim is not just to open to all the students, if they're interested to to learn the Chinese. So that actually this is just the location of our students.
Yeah. So mostly then the kids are from the Chinese diaspora around West Yorkshire.
Yeah. And
But you're aiming to serve everyone. Anybody's
I
interested.
just gave some achievement. Actually in 2008 we had the first class that attend the GCSE exam, and then actually 12 students and all students get A star. I think it's very cool. This is our first time we do like that.
But there are students in the school. I mean, I'm born and brought up in Bradford, as a lot of the Chinese are, but I'm not. My parents are not Chinese and don't speak Chinese at home. But there's quite a lot of Asian kids there, and there's some African kids we've had at the school. So it's very welcoming to anybody who wants to learn about China. It's not just the language. I mean, the school is a center for Chinese culture. And so you start to understand a culture that is 5,000 years old and very different from ours. It's amazing how different it is. And we live in a world where, well, as far as economics goes, people who aren't trading and working with China are not going to do well. I mean, are they? I mean, that's
left behind. Yeah.
I'm a Bradfordian all my life, and the main reason I'm there learning Chinese and learning about Chinese culture is so that we can build and bring collaborations with China and bring jobs and industry to Bradford. And I think there's a lot of interest in that from the Chinese. What we need to get together and get a group in Bradford. We're starting to do that, to start and work. But you can't organize industry and collaborations unless you well, you've got to respect the culture, but to organize them, you've got to understand the culture as well. And that's very important. And the Chinese school plays an enormous role in doing that. And it's really, really good and valuable for the city.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Yeah, this is an old industrial city, isn't it? Let's bring some of that back. It used to be one of the major industrial centres of the world when the textile industry was here. So yeah, and yeah, who better to help us in Chinese, which is really the industrial powerhouse of the entire world now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
We have enormous advantages in Bradford because the future with the fourth industrial revolution is innovation and creativity. And the best sort of innovation and creativity is having a diverse, multicultural population. And Bradford has that in shovel loads.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we need to exploit it. And so that's another reason that I'm very keen to work with and be part of the Chinese school.
Yeah, we're in full agreement, John. Yeah,
Yeah.
talking our language.
Yeah. John is Chinese is very good. I remember John, Professor John, he used to read a Chinese book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Titus Salt School.
And then actually, based on the history, I can show you, the certificate. This is our certificate, the quality mark certificate. And so actually, I just show you some slides, okay?
Wow, yeah.
And
very proud of that.
This is our bronze certificate, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I think I based on the history, I just want to show you, very few slides, and then actually, and also actually we go to the the Bradford Council to get the certificate for quality mark, Yeah. So this actually I want to show you some few slides.
Yes.
So now I will close my sharing now.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yeah, congratulations on your awards that you were winning.
Yeah.
I guess the next question I have then, do you want to give us a bit of background about the history of the Chinese diaspora in Bradford and links from Bradford to China, that kind of thing?
Actually, we have a many link in Bradford. We working with the Bradford Council. So actually, we have working with the diversity and the cohesion Bradford Council, and they give us many support as well. And actually, we also working with the for some Chinese community, and like the Bradford Chinese Church. And sometimes if we organize some event, sometimes we invite them to join us, and also we join their event as well. And actually, in Bradford, actually we also working with the other community. For example, actually we used to work in the Polish Bradford Polish school, and I think I remember we have another in the Pakistan group, the Guangwada school, something like that. Is a Pakistan school. So actually, we also working with some other Chinese school. For example, in Leeds, we have the Leeds Community School, so the Chinese community school. So we're working with them sometimes. Actually, sometimes we can exchanging the experience, and also we sometimes if some event we invite them to join as well. So actually, we also sometimes we also organize many events in our school. For example, for each year in Chinese New Year, normally the Chinese New Year is very important for us, Sometimes we organize some Chinese celebration, and so invite to some other school or other community, and also sometimes we will invite to the Bradford Council and to join us. So that actually we're not just for Chinese Chinese. We also working with different people, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think it's worth bearing in mind that the Chinese community in Bradford comes from many sources and has been there for a long time. I mean, most people, well, I remember there's always been Chinese food shops, takeaways and restaurants and things like that. And what's happened is there's a big community in Liverpool that's been there for hundreds of years, a very, very long time. And some of people have come over from there. There's some people who have come and set up businesses in Bradford, which are very successful and very dynamic. And also we have quite a community of Chinese people at the university. We've had hundreds and hundreds of Chinese students who've come to Bradford University and learnt about Bradford. And there's quite a community of them in China who look back to Bradford and are very fond of Bradford and are becoming quite senior in the country. There's, I mean, some very senior people in China who came to Bradford University, who came to the business school, did management, did international relations, and now are extremely senior in the businesses, the banks, the commerce arrangements in China. And I keep in contact with a lot of them, and it's really quite amazing, and they're really interested in Bradford. So there's lots of opportunities for Bradford to build on these links. And one thing that we'd like to do, and I'm doing, I mean, is to put together a team of people from Bradford who are interested in the commercial, the education, and the exchange links with China. We already have a link on the city of film because Qingdao in China is a city of film. And so Bradford as a city, an international city of film, has a link with Qingdao, but that's just on film. We'd really like to bring businesses here and bring lots of jobs into Bradford. And that means that we need businesses who also want to take their businesses into China. And there's enormous potential for that. The Muslim community, for instance, in China is very big. I mean, much, much bigger than in Britain. And in most of the cities, there's quite a large Muslim community. And I think they'd be really interested in the sort of food we produce in Bradford. And we've got we're, as far as Britain goes, we are the leading place for curries and that sort of food. If you go and eat the food, the Korean, Indian, South Asian food in China, it is quite different to the food that is served in Bradford. And I think there'd be a lot of interest from the Chinese in the Chinese cities, and particularly the ones with large Muslim populations, of setting up businesses there. And in the same way, those cities that we're talking about, they typically might have 5 million, 10 million people in them. They're much, much bigger than Bradford, and many of them would come over here and set up businesses. So we're trying to put together a small group that's interested in China, but being interested is not enough. You need to understand some of the culture. And that's where the school and the Chinese community come in, because it is a very different, it's a very ancient culture. The whole of development in China was through an exam called the Gaokao. So kids for thousands of years, even kids from all over China, you know, even if they've had very poor parents, have done really well in this exam and become very senior in the government, something very, very different to Britain. So it's senior route. I mean, here it's who you know, not what you know.
Yeah, it still is as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so this
Still is, yeah.
China of intellectual excellence and kids doing really well is a long-standing thing, and it's a very different culture and attitude towards universities, attitude towards education, attitudes towards school, and support for the children doing things. And it's just really, really interesting. And it opens up for us all sorts of routes in helping. I mean, one route might be just in helping learn English, and that's a very easy thing to do now with Zoom. You can. I actually work with a group of Chinese, and they're 7 hours in front of us. So at midday on a Friday and a Monday, I have a chat in Chinese and they chat in English with a group of kids in China, and they're delighted because they get someone who speaks, well, with a Bradford accent.
Yeah,
But, so, and there's lots and lots of opportunities for doing that. And I hope that perhaps we can sort something out with the university where the students will get paid for doing it. But at the moment, it's all done for free, really.
That's it.
There's a lot of good ideas there, yeah.
Yeah, and China, I know it's a old country, like you said, very ancient culture, but also a big country. It has multiple cultures in it. Does the Chinese school teach just Mandarin, or does it teach Cantonese as well? And I know there's a few other languages in China. How many Chinese languages and dialects are you teaching?
I think can I answer that, Jumping? Because that one of the cultural things about China is that the written language is the same wherever you go. And in fact, if you go to Japan and write down the characters, Japanese
Chinese
people
characters,
understand it. And if you talk to people in China, as I do, and or they talk to you and you don't understand it, they'll write it down for you. So it's it's a part of the culture that's very, very different. The language, wherever you go, even if it's Cantonese, the characters are the same. They just pronounce them differently. So everybody can talk to everybody. But you're totally right. China is as big, well, it's as big as the United States, including Alaska. It's got 1.4 billion people in it, and there's enormous differences in the culture. All the many provinces are divided by mountains and rivers, and they are different pasts, different histories, and the people are very different. The food is very different. The culture of what they do is very different. I mean, it's different as going, to Bulgaria or Turkey and then going to Ireland. It's enormously different. It's a very varied and rich country in their culture and interests. And most people don't, most people see the Great Wall of China. They don't realize it's 6,000 kilometers long. And at the other end is completely different to what you see, which the bit with Jiangping has is just behind Beijing. So it's just an enormous, it's such a wealth of character, just like Bradford. If you go around Bradford, we have an enormous wealth of people and cultures living in Bradford. And that's so powerful, so rich, and so empowering for what we can do. Our big problem is that we don't use it.
Mm.
We're in complete agreement there, and hopefully we can help to start making that diversity really productive and really beneficial for as many people as possible, hopefully.
I have had the same problem though with English sometimes. When I'm in the South, they can't understand. I write it down and they know what I'm saying.
Bradford's its own thing, and Bradford's like Cantonese, I guess. Yeah, Bradfordian. Yeah.
Actually, you just mentioned the Mandarin and the Cantonese. Actually, just like the John said, like the two languages is the writing is completely the same. The only difference is the pronunciation.
So it's just a different dialect. Am I correct in thinking that Korean uses Chinese characters as well a lot? Although they have their own system, but they also use Chinese characters sometimes.
But actually, correct? I'm not sure. Hopefully, my understanding is correct. Actually, they have have some link between Korea and the Japanese.
Yeah, but I've had Korean students, and they can read Chinese characters and properly. So I think the Korean language has different ways of writing it, but one of the ways is using Chinese. For Korea used to be part of China, not all that long ago.
True.
I just maybe maybe 100 years ago, they use the Chinese language and for the communicate. And then actually about 1930 or 40, they wanted their independent, so that is they want to create their own language,
So that's when they
And I've got a question for you, Jiangping. So where in China are you from, and what brought you to Bradford?
I from the in China, I in the Sichuan, do you know that? In the
Sichuan.
Szechuan spice, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very in the chili food, you know,
Yes, yes, yes. I've used some of that
spice
now in
food, something.
cooking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they had a very
Oh,
big
Sichuan's lovely.
earthquake in Sichuan not very long ago. And
I
they
think yeah,
enormous-
2008.
Okay.
yeah, 2008.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was there. I was there.
Oh,
Really?
wow. What was you survived?
there.
That's good.
I was there a month before the earthquake, and we went up
Really?
the mountains to look at the pandas and see all sorts of beautiful things in the mountains and the borders of Tibet it was. And these precipitous roads and tunnels through the mountains. It was interesting to say the least. Then the earthquake, when I'd left, the earthquake came and these roads all disappeared. It's just it was a dreadful time. The Chinese did enormous amounts of work in rescuing people and setting things up. It was really quite amazing because I've kept in touch with the people who live there and who told me about it.
Yes, they have a big sort of ability to maneuver around when things are needed in China compared to what we
And
do.
mobilize resources. We've seen that with the pandemic.
Yeah.
China stopped it dead, and we're still dealing with it. Yeah, China managed to mobilize a lot more of their country.
So
It's not new. It's not new. In Sichuan, for instance, you can go to the capital Chengdu, which has an enormous river, which used to flood. And 2,000 years ago, they built flood defenses so that they flooded all the fields to grow the crops, and then they moved the river so it flowed in its proper course, and they controlled the floods. And for 2,000 years, this system has been operating and making the land very fertile and keeping the people safe from the floods. So just imagine 2,000 years. What is it, 100 generations?
Fantastic. Yeah, love to hear it. Yeah. I want to look back. You mentioned cultural events and Chinese New Year. What kind of celebrations do you put on for Chinese New Year? Is it food? Is it?
And normally we have some performance from the student. So there are two aims. The one aim is actually to promote the Chinese culture, and we can invite different people to join us. And also we also give a student a chance to performance, use the language, in the Chinese language. So I think it is quite good. And also, actually, of course, for Chinese people, we like the eating, Sometimes actually, just the Professor John mentioned that in Bradford we have many Chinese people. They have the business access. Actually, they can support us to download the food. So that means actually we can different food to people can eat. So I think it is quite an enjoyable event, for student and parent.
Yes, it is, and also, as well as the Chinese culture and things going on, I mean, they do some taekwondo displays, they do singing, and they do dancing, which all are very interesting and different. And so it's a big celebration, and it's very nice. They have visitors, Chinese visitors from the other schools and from the embassy as well. They come, so they must think it's important.
the embassy is based in London.
And no, in Manchester, sorry.
Oh, the embassy in Manchester.
Yeah. Oh,
It's good. It's good that Bradford's making an impact on even the ambassadors.
Yeah,
good fun to come.
Yeah.
I think I would select that the Chinese embassy is very helpful for Chinese people, So from here, I must select that in the last year the pandemic, okay, and the embassy sent our school some masks, and so we can get at that time it's very difficult to buy it. Everybody needs a mask. Actually, the government sending me something like that. We feel like that as a Chinese people, and we felt very proud. And actually, even sometimes most people live in the Bradford or UK many years, but the Chinese government is still didn't forget us.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah. And the other thing, So you teach Chinese languages, obviously, and Chinese culture and history at the Chinese school. What other kind of things are in your curriculum? What other, kind of subjects you teach at the Chinese school?
And we manage just teaching language,
Language.
and they actually, based on language, we sometimes talking about some, some Chinese culture, and sometimes we organize some, the Chinese cultural event, and some for Chinese culture actually it gives students understand, the beauty of language, and is very nice. Maybe I can show you. I feel slide you can understand.
Absolutely, yeah, please do.
Yeah.
So let them find my mouse.
While we're looking for that, I think one of the things, the Chinese culture of poetry, literature, stories, mythology is enormous. And one of the things we do in the schools in learning the language is learn Chinese poems that are perhaps 800 years old, or perhaps 2000 years old. That we start learning mythology about how people, or what their view of the gods were, and the formation of the earth, and farming, and all sorts of things. A very different culture. So in learning the language, you learn all these stories about ancient China and about the mythology, the stories of the books. It's an enormous literature, which only very little is translated into English. So actually doing this in the school, I mean, when you say you're just learning the language, it's so much more than just learning, like, the cat sat on the map when you're learning French.
Yeah. You learn it, you're opening up a whole new world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whole new treasure trove of information, and knowledge.
Yeah, for example, we just talking about the Chinese culture, and can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, this is the couplet. Actually, when the New Year is coming, and each family they will, you can look at it, the life right, the two sentence, okay. And each family should be you place on the door, So this is the Chinese culture, and actually, for Chinese language, actually is the beauty of language. Of course, it has some language beauty, and you look here, the calligraph is very beautiful, So this actually, so you sometimes, they can show, not only the language, but also you can use the language is also a beauty,
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that
so
might actually the student find, oh, this language is they find more interest to learn the language,
Yeah. So each of those characters you can see there, they have a meaning. And so the way in which you draw the characters gives the meaning as well as the actual meaning of the character. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a bit like poetry in art. It is something we don't have at all.
Yeah, you can add another layer to it.
Yeah, the aesthetics sort of communicate the tone, possibly the tone of
Yes.
the character and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you can imagine something saying strict. The way you draw that in calligraphy?
Sharp angles, I'm imagining. Yeah.
The way in which you draw love, for instance. And you can bring out those feelings, those emotions with how the character is produced. And that's something we don't have. But the Chinese love it. And you see a lot of people doing Chinese calligraphy. And sometimes in the parks, there'll be people walking along, and on the pavement, on the flagstones, drawing in water the calligraphy for poetry. And you'll see lots of people walking behind them and admiring what they're doing. It's really very, very strange. Another big cultural difference in China as well is that in the evenings, everybody goes out into the parks dancing. Even in places where it's cold, where it's below freezing, you'll find most of the parks, there's people out there dancing in the street. It's not in the streets. Well, if there's a very big wide pavement, they'll dance in the streets, but it's usually in the parks. It's very, very different. And you might go into a park, well, in Sichuan, in Chengdu, in the capital Chengdu, and that in a large park there, you might find 50 different groups dancing all sorts of things, from jive to traditional ballroom dancing. I mean, all amazing. It really is. It's a
That's
very
something that you're trying to bring over to Bradford, then trying to get Bradfordians dancing in the parks.
No.
Well, it would be a good thing to do. Yes, yeah.
They might need some lubricant to get them to do it. Yeah, but a few Yorkshire pints might help with that.
I think that this just, you know, the type of Chinese culture, you know.
Yeah.
For Chinese people, we wanted to work in together, you know. So
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for the interview. It's been great talking to you both.
okay, thank you.
And hopefully have another one soon.
Okay, see you. Maybe next time we can invite you to join us.
That would be great. Yeah. Thanks.